everyone, welcome to the Improv Summit with this lovely Photoshop background here on season two. I can't believe we're already in season two. Wow, 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 what a time it is. Today, I have a very special guest with me today, and I always say that, so I'm going to change it because instead of a very special guest, I'm going to improvise a new title. It's a wonderful, splendid guest with me today, and that wonderful, splendid guest is Victoria. Victoria, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. All things considered, we're still doing these improv shows via Zoom, but pretty soon, season three maybe will be in person. We'll see. I'm excited.
Yes and no. Yeah, we'll be doing more stuff in person, but I read somewhere that like 80% of music fans still want online shows after things reopen. So you'd be surprised how
Mm.
much is going to stay online. Like, not to be a Debbie
Oh
Downer,
yeah.
we're not leaving
No,
it anytime soon.
I will say being able to not have to like leave my house a lot of times to drive anywhere is pretty nice actually.
No lines, no
But
crowds, no. Yeah,
it's
definitely.
amazing. But then also like there are things like like theme parks. I miss theme parks, which they're starting to open up more or less, but like it's so different virtually than it is in person. Like actually being in a theme park and going on the ride versus watching it on YouTube is it's a big difference.
I tried that. My sister and I tried that at the start of the pandemic. We're like, let's have a Disney day, and we tried watching, and we're like, no, this is not cutting it.
Yeah, it's fun. You can like Google Map the Disney parks. You can literally go inside and like go on the rides, but it's not the same. It's not the same. I like the smells, I like the sounds, I like the seats that were never clean prior, but now they're getting them cleaned a lot, a lot.
Well, and also just the feeling that Walt Disney was here, which as a Californian,
Yeah,
huge with me for Disneyland. So I get that there's like this actual historical nostalgic sense of being in the park that you can't replicate that feeling. I don't even think there's a word for that feeling, but
mm.
you can't do it online.
Yeah, it's like nostalgia. I couldn't think of a term. I was trying to like put something together. Nostalgia. It's just
I guess it's
nostalgia.
just nostalgia, but there's something about the whole experience. And that's why Disneyland is such an effective marketing tool.
Yeah, they
Like,
say it's Walt's Park.
it is. And as someone, I grew up here, my parents grew up here. My mom actually was born shortly after Disneyland opened and went there the first time when she was 4 weeks old. So Disney is a huge part of my family history, and we have missed it
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, well, this is the Improv Summit theme park edition, so let's keep. No, I'm just kidding. It's funny because I've had episodes where like I start talking about food or like Greek or whatever, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is just the new. And like I would love to talk about theme parks all day. Like we could literally improvise a theme park episode, and that might be interesting. Two people at a theme park for the whole episode.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
I think it'd be fascinating.
but before we dive into maybe improv. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe not. We'll see. As sometimes it happens on the show, as in it always happens. So it'll happen. But I don't want to tell you that yet because I want to surprise you.
Right.
Anyway, that being said, let's talk about you and your improv background. What is your improv background?
I have kind of a unique improv background, which I'm guessing everyone thinks they have a unique improv background, but mine is actually kind of unique because my dad is one of the founders of the Groundlings. So I used to do improv games at home with my dad. A thing moms hate, I'm not a mom, but I know moms hate it, and yet dads do it, is they say they're babysitting their children. You're not babysitting, it's your child. But when my dad was in charge of watching us, or as he thought of it, babysitting, he didn't know like what do you play with kids? So we do improv games, and I didn't know that these were improv games
Hmm,
because like we were just playing. So I did that my whole childhood, and when I was 13, my dad enrolled me in a class at Groundlings, and I was really shocked to learn that what we did at home was improv. So I did improv training. I went to a place called the Harvey Lembeck Comedy Workshop, which is where I really wet my feet. And Harvey Lembeck was a brilliant comedic actor and one of the foremost improv coaches
hmm,
back in like the 70s and 80s. And his daughter, Helene, continues to run the school. And I did that throughout high school. And it was a really educational experience. But I wanted to train at one of the big schools. And since Julia
sure.
Dreyfus was always one of my idols, and I knew she trained at Second City, I wanted to train at Second City. So I spent some time at Second City Hollywood. And then because I live in Los Angeles and UCB is like the millennial heaven, I of course spent some time at UCB as well. But the most formative experience for me, the one that really shaped how I look at comedy, is probably somewhere between Harvey Lembeck and Second City. Those two really
Hmm.
shaped how I see comedy. So I've done a lot of improv, and it's been part of my life for basically my whole life.
That's awesome. Two things to touch on. One is regarding groundlings. I have not. It's like the only like big LA program I haven't done because I know a lot of people who have gone through the program are like have to keep repeating levels, and I don't think I'm at a level of confidence yet where I'm like, if I don't pass it, I would be like, I'm devastated. So I have to like build my confidence up to like get to the point where I could feel okay not passing. Like that's I'm like at that. I'm there. I'm like I'm not there yet. I think.
So different from what, so my dad was there. My dad was a director, not an actor, and he wanted to get some experience from the actor's side, and he loved comedy, so improv was a good choice. And actually, he'll tell you, if you ever ask him about the Groundlings, the first thing he'll tell you is, I didn't pick the name. He'd be like, I voted for the other name. I don't remember what the other name was. He would, but I voted for the other name.
Top secret information we'll save for the next episode. So subscribe,
Right.
hit that subscribe button.
Definitely subscribe. But no, so that's one thing. But the second thing is he admits that, like, as much as they were having fun, it has become a very different enterprise. They were not teaching and then expecting people to
Mm,
join them. They were already, and this is true of Second City and UCB as well. They weren't coming at it from, we're going to start a school. Like, they were starting comedy troupes that have since transitioned into schools. And so it was a very different attitude. It was these original like 40 people. It was like my dad and Lorraine Newman and Lorraine's sister Tracy and like a bunch of other people, I guess about 30 some other people. And they were just
mhm.
playing and doing improv and scenes and exploring. They weren't trying to like create a system that they were trying to teach to people. So when I brought up to my dad how the system works at Gurlings now, he was like, that's a thing? Like, there's a whole system? I'm like, yeah, it's a system. It's not just like you
Yeah.
go and play. So it was very different from what was initially intended. It's always kind of fascinating to me.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, that's great. And the second thing was regarding Second City because I went through that program as well. And what I really discovered about it is that, the first few levels, I skipped the one through three because I'd already gone through other programs, but one through three is short form, very much short form games and like really kind of diving into the basics of improv. Then you get into the conservatory, and the first couple levels are like kind of an introduction to long form, sort of kind of whatever. And then you get into like what is it like 4 and 5 and it's re-improvisation, and then you get into grad review, which is building all of these into sketches, these this concepts of improv and comedy and all this. So I think what's really great about that program is it takes improv, re-improv, and sketch, so you get a little bit of everything, but you also learn how to use these building blocks to create sketch. Now if you're not a sketch person, might not be the program for you. But if you're if you're interested in the sketch, that's probably a good one to go to. They say Groundlings is great for characters, Second City is great for sketch, UCB is great for game, and IORIP would have been like more of like a relationship based. Comedy sports is for like fast, quick-witted, short form, competition based, like friendly competition, not like real competitive. But I think that's what's great about all these programs and their ability to coexist. Impro's narrative, I love Impro. But also the great thing about these places is they can coexist because they all have the same foundation of heightened listening, yes, but they all have their own unique thing that they bring to the improv table. And so if you're like, I'm totally like, I love characters, that's my thing. Not my thing, but if you love characters, like Groundlings is like a good place to do that because you can really dive into creating characters for sketches and for improv. Whereas something like UCB, it's like they say it trains you like a writer. If you want to be a writer, that's probably a great place to go. Second City is great if you want to learn like the gamut of different styles of comedy, including sketch writing specifically. But I think that that's what's great about all these programs is they're able to coexist, and you get a little something different from each program.
Totally. And I think this is where Harvey Lembeck had kind of an interesting place for me because the system was built on the idea of playing games. So every
Mm,
scene was like a game, but it wasn't game like UCB game. The
sure.
idea behind the games of Harvey Lembeck was that comedy is, and this is actually something that I've taken with me in a slightly modified form from how they did it. Comedy is built on conflict. Comedy is built on expectations not being met or on people not seeing something the same way. And I think where that gets a little challenging is that a lot of scenes that I did there, I think devolved unintentionally into arguments because
Mm-hmm.
literally disagreeing is a very good way to do that. But what it taught me was basically that fundamentally comedy is about conflict. Comedy is the conflict between what you expect to happen and what happens. And what makes it funny is that it's not what you're expecting. So I
Yeah.
think having that training and constantly coming at it, every scene we'd get up, we'd be given a prompt and usually we'd be in twos, sometimes in threes, depending. And we'd use props and we'd use characters. We did so much. And so it really is a very comprehensive concept for training. And I wouldn't
Hmm.
say it's the best way to learn the improv of the yes and that's being taught now. It's more of a way to really learn comedy and how to be funny, because the emphasis there is on being funny. So that was a really good training ground. And I was in high school when I was there versus Second City. I was in college. And actually, I'm telling you, we were there at the same time. We didn't know each
Yeah.
other. We were
Yeah.
definitely
Right.
at the same time. Um, and it's a very, I mean, I think honestly, they all offer their own merits, like you're saying. And it's interesting to see how many different systems have cropped up, even in the last few years, with their own
Mhm.
take on the same concept.
Yeah, that's great. And I think you bring up something about like this idea of like this comedy being specific to the funny, right? And I think that's what's also great about improv is a lot of times people are like, I have to be funny to do improv. And like being funny is an element of it, and there are certain programs that really push the idea of comedy and being funny. But there's also something called dramatic improv. There's also improv where I found that the funniest things for me when I'm playing in a scene or when I'm watching a scene is the mistakes that happen. And I say mistakes as in like that was a fun little thing that wasn't anticipated, because improv you have to anticipate, but you also can't anticipate improv because you don't know what people are going to say. But what I love about it, it's like sometimes I'll say something and like someone I remember, they called me at a character's name and they're like, oh, they called somebody Charlie and it was supposed to be like Mike or something. And they go, Charlie, he goes, oh, by the way, my name that was given to me was Roger. Oh, Roger, you're Charlie, and I go, oh, I'm actually Mike. That's what I was, and like he's like, oh, Charlie, I'm Charlie. That's my middle name, Charlie. So it like became like this fun bit that was actually really funny, but it wasn't intentional. So I think that that's great that there are certain programs and certain things that really build on the comedy elements for improv, and then there are certain programs that kind of are just like improv exists and like we improvise all the time and like improv is funny inherently because people are inherently funny. Like it's that's what I think it is like if you try to be funny, you're not going to be as funny, but if you're just being a heightened version of yourself, you're going to find that you're actually a lot funnier than you think you are.
Well, or like even just like you're saying, the misunderstandings on stage. I'll take it back to Second City and I'll use
Oh,
a
I
name
like
because
misunderstandings. That's better. I like that.
misunderstandings. And I'll give you a name because you'll this name will ring a bell to you. Nico Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
Nico and I were in a scene together, and the prompt we were given was like dead body or something. And so Nico and I come out, and he comes out and he does this like very creepy voice. But what I get from the creepy voice is not what I think he was going for. I think he was going for kind of like a vampire, like a, we've got this dead body
Mm-hmm.
kind of scene. But I heard his voice and I was like, this is like a creepy Undertaker. And so I start like mourning the corpse, and poor Miko's standing there. And I'm like, I think I cut him off. He's like, no, the scene was 10 times funnier because you misunderstood what my intent was. And that's the thing, is you can't read mind. If you're a mind reader, actually, I think your improv is going to suck because it's going
Mm-hmm.
to completely kill the idea that anything can happen. But when
Mm-hmm.
you get on a stage and you don't expect anything, anything can happen. And you wind up with some fascinating material.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's what I love. It's like there are certain elements of improv, right? There's even something called structured improv, which is like, if you're doing like a show that's running for like 6 months and you're like it's a different show every week, but there's gonna be a bad guy, there's gonna be a good guy, there's gonna be a fight scene at the end. Like those things are going to be structured into it, but the whole storyline changes. So you don't know where those pieces are gonna fit in, which is, that's like, here are some things I'm giving you, and now let's improvise around it. But then there are also things where it's like, hi, give me something that I can do. Like, give me a suggestion. And that's like full on improv where you don't even know. And even if you go in with your like, team, what do we want to do tonight? I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. If you don't even know what form you're doing or anything, it's like true improv to the point where you're like, yeah, we'll figure out what's going on. But also, that reflects daily life. And daily life, I mean, I have a schedule because like I'm a planner. Ah, get it? I'm a planner.
Ha!
There was my pun for the show. I don't think I've missed a pun yet, but that one was unintentional. But yeah, but I'm a planner, so I have like all these things in my schedule of like this time I got to do this, but everything else around that I don't know, and I also can't control like if my car breaks down or if I go somewhere and it's closed, or if someone's running late, or if someone's running ahead of schedule, like there are things that I have to factor in that I can't factor in because I don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's probably a great example of structured improv. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let's move on to the next question. Because I don't,
No, it's completely true. And like even just doing an interview is a form of improv because
Mm.
you can't anticipate my answers, I don't think. And
Yeah, you can't anticipate my tangents either.
no, it's complete improv. Having a conversation is improv. And I think actually that's one of the things that people forget is they think, oh, improv's like for actors or like millennials who want to spend money on a class, because I've definitely heard
Mm-hmm.
that argument. But no, I think anyone who has to interact with the public, and
Yeah.
prior to last year, I would have said that's literally anyone, but now where we are in 2021, I'm like, that's a lot of people, would benefit from improv training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and going back to the millennial thing, yeah, because I definitely want to spend the money that I have for sure.
I know. I will
Like,
tell
come
you.
on.
It happens. I went to a birthday party for a girl I went to high school with and hadn't seen in years, and I reconnected with her. And she was like, "Come to my birthday party." And I'm talking to some people there about my career, and at least one of them was like, "Yeah, I did this improv class once. It was super cool." And I'm like, "You definitely do not." Okay, so that's what's going to. That's we've hit this point.
You're the reason. You're the reason.
You're the reason I can't register for my next improv class, because there are just people like,
Uh,
and do not take this as me discouraging anyone from doing improv. I think it's a
yeah,
wonderful. It's just
yeah.
funny how people were treating it like avocado toast. They were like, "Oh, I'm thinking of doing improv." I'm like, "This is not the crowd I was expecting to see doing improv." I mean, it was like what was like a nerd.
Yeah,
It was. I'm very happy for them. I think it's wonderful, but
yeah.
it was also kind of funny how we were all looking for the same class.
Right. Which also speaks to, first of all, I love avocado toast. So if you're going into that analogy, I love avocado toast like I love my improv. Both. I didn't do it right, but the point is I love avocado toast and I love improv. Which I didn't like avocado until I moved out to California, so that says a lot. But that also goes to show that, like, you have like a nurse, you have a lawyer, you have a theme park employee, you have, my friend that lives two doors down the street who works all day from home. Anyone can do improv. And they're going, I say inherently a lot now. Inherently, there's going to be people who are really good at it, and there are people who I feel are not. I would say no one's not good at it. There are inherently people who are good at it. There are people who want to learn, and there are people who find that it's not for them, and that's totally fine. It's not like improv is for everyone. Improv can be for everyone, and it is accessible in its own way for everyone, but people may not like it, and that's okay. I don't consider myself necessarily like a I get improv kind of person. I consider myself someone who continues to learn improv because I like doing it. And I think that that's like the biggest thing that I've learned is if I don't like it, I may not want to do it. But if I like it, even if I'm not the greatest improviser, or I'm not like, constantly doing it, as long as I'm learning and I'm having fun, that's really all that for me matters when it comes to improv.
I think that's fair. And I also think, touching on the learning thing and people who are there just to learn and aren't necessarily there to build like a career, I think those
Mhm.
people contribute so much to the community. And I think the challenge is it becomes an echo chamber of people who want to succeed in this at any cost. And unfortunately, the improv community has not been exempt from any of the other movements that have gone on around us, from Me
Mhm.
Too to, racial injustice to any number of issues. And the more people we have who are more than happy to just say, "I was just doing this for fun," and walk out, the easier it will be to make it a safer community for everyone.
Mhm.
And I say this as a woman who definitely did not have it as badly as I mean, I definitely know some women who went through some horrible experiences in this community because they wanted parts or they wanted to get onto certain teams. My story is very innocuous by comparison. I got yelled at by an instructor in front of the entire class moments before our show, our class show. And I never reported the instructor because I thought it would mess up my chances. This was not at Second City. This was not at the Groundlings. This was not in front
Mhm.
of Quebec. So draw from that where it was. I didn't think that reporting it would reflect well on me. And I thought he's been here for years and I am a pretty low person on the totem pole. So why should I say anything about this abusive instructor yelling at me in front of the entire class for literally, it wasn't like constructive. He called me a control freak, which is also a very sexist thing to say.
Yeah.
And I just think that the more people who are there who are willing to say, "I'm not going to put up with this BS. I'm not here to build a career. I'm not here for my resume. I'm here for fun," the safer you make the entire community in every way
Mhm.
for everyone else. So I might have made those people sound like martyrs. That's not my intent, but I'm saying that the more people who just do it like pottery classes, like if your pottery instructor threw pottery at you or something, you just say, I don't need this and leave. But improv has too many people for whom the stakes are too high. So
Yeah, I was literally gonna say stakes are low. Mind meld. I was gonna say make the stakes lower in that situation, which is the
yeah,
opposite of what you want to do in improv, is you want to make the stakes high.
keep making
Um,
those stakes higher and higher in improv because it makes it
but
fun.
also, even going off of that, like the stakes being low, this idea of like I've done scenes where I would like panic because I'm like I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to do it wrong. And then I go out and I like maybe don't even understand what's going on and I just completely mess up the whole scene. But I was like, oh wait, the building is still standing. Everyone's having a good time. Like nothing happened. Like it's okay.
It's true.
Like there's no stakes in improv at all.
It's like going to the gym. I mean, you don't have to show up on the first day ready to bench 100 pounds. You show up on
Right.
the first day, and the truth is, I think improv, as much as it sounds like it would be a cutthroat community, it's really not. The people who stick around in the community aren't like that. They are there to have fun too. I mean, yeah, it's obviously a little bit higher stakes for them because it's part of their professional life, but they're there to have fun. And I have yet to see anyone in the improv community actively make it so that someone who was there just to learn and try had a bad experience. In fact, I think if
Mhm.
anything, if some like lawyer showed up in an improv class, I think that person would be the most popular person in the class because everyone would be fascinated by why this lawyer was hanging out with them. So I
Yeah.
think you
Oh yeah.
definitely, if you want to be really popular, I mean, maybe a lawyer's a bad example, but in general, if you want to be really popular, be something completely different and just try improv. And I'm telling you, everyone in the class will be asking you a million questions about what in the world brought you to this
Yeah.
situation. So, I mean, there is something for everyone. And if you look at it from a professional perspective, yeah, you're going to have those people too. And they're going to be really, really good in a lot of cases. And they might seem scary, but they are totally, I mean, you can pretty much, if you see a show and you admire someone in that show and it's not like, Sam Richardson in that show, you can pretty much contact anyone you saw at an improv show and be like,
Yeah.
hey, like it goes from the instructors in the classes are also the people on the stages and they're also friends with everyone. It's a very incestuous community. So there
Hmm.
is absolutely no reason why anyone is going to gatekeep and say, no, 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 you're not cool enough to talk to me. Again, unless it's like a celebrity who happens to be showing up that night, in which case it's still a celebrity. Celebrity rules apply. But
Right.
otherwise, it's very much the kind of community where you can just talk to people and say, hey, I really loved what you did. I'd love to, see more of your shows or hear more about your background, or like, I'd love to ask you a question. Like, when people did stuff like that with me, I was always very flattered and happy to help.
Yeah, and that it also goes back to like this show too. Like I've gotten to like bring in a lot of incredible people that I don't think I would have ever had access to otherwise because of that mindset of being like, well, they're like, oh, they're such an improviser in the improv world that they would not want to speak with me. I'm still learning, and so I think that you bring up a great point where it was like me just going, hey, we did improv way back when, or like you were my teacher. Do you want to come like do this thing with me? And I never once got a nah, no. It was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. Let me know when you want to do it. Because it is like, even though there's so many people in improv, it's such a small community in its own interesting way. But I think you bring up such a great point where it's like we put those barriers on ourselves as improvisers of like, well, they're out of my league as an improviser, so I can't contact them yet until I'm at their level. And I think it is like why is that a thing? Especially with teachers who are like, yeah, you have my email. If you ever want to ask questions or anything, even after class, like go ahead and send me an email. They're like, and they are like, I may not respond right away, which is fine, but they're like, I will get back to you. And we don't take advantage of this because, like you said, we think that it's like, oh, I can't do that because I'm not this person, I'm not that person, I'm not at the level of this person. So I think you brought up a great point because I think it is something for us to really consider, like why shouldn't we email a past teacher and say, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to thank you for what you taught me. I really love what you had to say. Do you have any shows coming up? I'd love to like, check them out or like maybe like grab a beer after your next show or like whatever. And like, that's how you make connections. Networking. It's a thing.
It's networking, and also honestly, I think people are flattered that I mean, if I got an email from someone that I did class with a couple years ago and they were just like, hey, I'm thinking of starting a podcast, I'd probably be very excited and want to talk to them. And I think instructors appreciate hearing that what you did made an impact, because like what they did for you made an impact, because a lot of improv instructors are not looking to be lifelong improv instructors. And I think sometimes it can get
Exactly.
very frustrating to realize that, they teach a bunch of people, they never see them again, they get to do a few shows. Like it might not always be the most fulfilling thing. So it's not like teaching kindergarten where like you get to see the kids grow up. It's like you get to see a bunch of people do a bunch of improv on stage and then
Hmm.
in a lot of cases go get drunk at the local bar. So I think there is something to be said for contacting an instructor and saying, hey, what you did really made an impact. In fact, after this conversation, Jamie Moyer, if you remember Jamie Moyer
Yeah,
from
I sure do.
made a huge impact on me because I was in college when I was at Second City and I was not old enough to drink and I did not have a fake ID. So I was often left
Good
out of
for you.
well, I just didn't see a point. I was 20. I
I
figured
didn't drink. I didn't drink till I was 21. So I mean,
I didn't
whatever.
see a point. And so I didn't have one. But I will say there was a social element that was missing there because people would go out to a bar and I couldn't even go
Hmm.
to the bar. Like it's one thing to go to the bar and not drink. It's another thing to just not go.
Right.
But Jamie always made it very clear that I was as much part of the group as anyone else. She insisted that after our final show, we go to a restaurant that I could go to because it wasn't a bar. And she made a point of introducing herself to my parents who came to the show because I was 20 and they wouldn't let me drive into Hollywood alone at 20. So they still hate it. They're still always like, take an Uber. Uber wasn't as trendy back then. This was in like
Yeah, right.
2013.
Now
So
it's like too trendy.
now it's like if I can get an Uber. But
Yeah, right.
anyway, they came to the show and she specifically made a point of introducing herself to them and telling them that they had a really talented kid. And like, I get that that's what you say when you meet someone's parents, but it was just she didn't have to go above and beyond like that. And Jamie really did. So I'm
Sure.
going to make a point after this podcast of emailing Jamie and thanking her because she really did do a wonderful job as a teacher and as a steward of an improv class. Now, on the flip side, I'm certainly not emailing the person I will not name who was not at Second City, Harvey Lembeck, or Groundlings, who yelled at me in front of the class because that was a traumatizing experience. It took me a long time to accept that was more his problem than my problem.
Hmm. Yeah, I cried in front of my whole class once when I had a spout with a teacher, and it was not pretty. I won't say where that was either, but it also wasn't. It's going to be hard to trace that unless you were in that class with me. Um, but I mean, it's also like that teaching style just wasn't for me, and that's fine. But it also was like now I feel uncomfortable and I feel embarrassed, and I hope people still like me. And so it was this whole like this whole spiral that I went to. But I also just it was like I have to move on. Like this one class is not worth me exhausting my energy for years to come because I know that I just don't have to deal with it.
But do remember, and this is more to your audience because you know this too, there are times where people cry in improv, but in a good class or a good team, that's a
Hmm.
moment where you kind of hug it out. I mean, I don't know what you do now, you don't hug it out, but like everyone just kind of, that's a moment. I was in an improv situation where someone started crying. I think the scene had brought up some stuff for her, not intentionally. No one was like out to trigger her, but it just kind of happened. And it was one of those moments where it was like, oh my gosh, Ashley, don't cry. And like people were hugging her. And it was the kind of thing where I think at the end of the day, she actually felt better about the situation leaving because she knew that she had the support of her team and she had the support of the people around her. It wasn't like people were out to get her. No one wanted to hurt her. So there can be really heartwarming moments like that too, where you think something really sucks and you're embarrassed and you're like, I didn't mean to start crying. And everyone around you is like, no, 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 we all have those moments. So that happens too. Don't think that it's all tears and people yelling at you. It's really not.
Yeah.
We remember
Improvisers are humans too.
we remember them because they were awkward for us, not because they were so common that if they were that common, we
Yeah.
would not be remembering them so vividly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. Even though improvisers are humans too, let's segue. This is the worst segue, but let's segue into the next question, which is do you have any plugs or pitches, anything that you want to share or promote?
Yes, let's talk about pilot season, which Spencer was
Yeah,
part
let's
of.
talk about it.
So we've been stuck at home for a while. I don't know when you'll be hearing this episode, but suffice it to say, I'm guessing we're not going to be out by then. So we're stuck at home or
We
somewhat stuck.
won't.
Like we're getting closer. We're getting closer. We get to go out a little bit. Things are getting better, but it's still not perfect. I have someone on my Instagram who just posted all the reasons he's not going to get the vaccine, and I was like, we're never going to get out of here. But
Hmm.
that aside, I realized at a certain point, probably about this time last year, that like I wasn't going anywhere anytime soon, and that was simultaneously a crushing realization because as a person in her mid-20s, the last thing I want to hear is stuck at home, safer at home. It's like, no, 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 my life is out there. Um,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And also I began to feel kind of suffocated by just the sitting at home all the time. I mean, this was before we really knew that like you could go out to a park and no one was going to get COVID if you all sat in the park. Like it was
Hmm.
still that kind of period. And I realized also there was a free element to it because I realized this meant that I had time to develop stuff for the internet, which I was able to take risks that were previously not seen as risks, but as like just stupid things. And one thing that I thought of was, why can't we do pilots via Zoom? And so at the time, I was really thinking more like staged readings meeting the internet. And then as time went on, I was like, no, 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 we can get more advanced about it. We can have music, we can have transitional footage. Like we can really try to make it like we don't have to have all the actors sitting there all the time. We can have people go in and out of scenes. And so I started working on what I call pilot season, which was a series of 5 pilots that I did over Zoom. So they're readings, but they're more than just readings. I mean, you were in one, Spencer. So you can say
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
not just like a bunch of people sitting in a Zoom
I
chat like
said I love the transitions. I thought those were really cool. I think that the like it's interesting because we see so much on Zoom. I just on a train of thought real quick, but because I know this is your promotion time and I just took it.
all good, all good.
But what I loved about it is like, there's so much that we're watching on Zoom and it's just like everything is just the same. But I loved it because it felt so refreshing and different. Because it felt like I was watching an episode of a TV show even though it was all on Zoom, because it did have those transitions, the music, like all the performances, and it was edited in a way which I know your sister edited it, so shout out. But but it felt very much like a throwback to like a 90s like sitcom. And so I really enjoyed it because it was very refreshing for an online medium. You kind of took what we don't like about online and made it something that we do like, and you made it work. And I think that that's what I liked. Anyways, back to you for promotion, but
No,
I'm
I
just throwing it out there. Watch pilot season.
you can keep gushing about it. That's totally fine by me too. So I wrote 5 pilots. They're all a little different. I mean, we have one that's like a multi-camera comedy that is very much like a family comedy, all the way down to like the last one. I had to count this for someone. We dropped 6 f bombs. So that
Wow.
was for a dramedy. I had someone ask for a count, so I was like, okay, great, time to count. Um, which I now realize I probably could have done with like find and replace on my computer, but nope, I counted. So anyway, there and then in the middle there's a middle ground. We have like one show that's really geared towards teen girls, one that it takes place in Antarctica, and then the one you were in, which is the nuclear option, which was the most ambitious by far, and it's kind of like a spiritual successor to Arrested Development. And I directed the 3 that I was not in. I was in the final 2. They all have there's something for everyone, because I mean you've got a little bit of a different flavor, but they all have kind of my signature like snarkiness underneath them. And it was a really fun project. It was very logistically challenging, but compared to like making a web series, it was very cheap. And it was very
Hmm.
COVID safe because no one left their houses to the best of my knowledge. I mean, I don't know what you guys did on your own time, but everyone was on a Zoom
Yeah,
screen like this. No one came to me.
I stayed in my home. I did not leave. I did not go to an actual golf course.
No,
uh
no, and like, no one had to go anywhere. We didn't have to rent locations. We didn't have to get film permits. We really just took advantage of the fact that no one was going anywhere. And when we started shooting pilot season back in like February, early February, that was a bad time in LA. Like the case numbers were skyrocketing.
mhm.
So we were truly safer at home filming these shows. And it wound up being a really fun opportunity. And the shows are still there on YouTube, ready to be watched. And the goal would obviously be to turn at least one, if not more, into a real series in safer times with studio backing. So that's my little
Yeah.
plug, which is you should totally check out pilot season. If you want to see Spencer in pilot season, that's episode 4, the nuclear option. I'm in that episode too. But I have descriptions for each episode, and I can give Spencer the link to that so he can share it with all of
Yeah,
you.
it'll be in the comments where I said the other things would be. So I don't
Go
remember what I
check
said.
out, go check
Subscribe,
out
and
down there.
I keep doing this because I know the comments are down there, but like I do like what the YouTubers do. Oh, like, share, subscribe, write down in the comments what you think about
Oh,
this
like
episode.
it's always so funny because I feel like I have to do that, and yet at the same time, who was it? I was in a Clubhouse room. I don't know if you're on Clubhouse, Spencer, or not,
I don't
but
have an iPhone.
Oh, wow. Okay, no, because Clubhouse is fascinating. But one thing I love is that one guy on there kept saying, make sure to bring 3 friends in so we can keep this room going. And I'm like, there are 75 people in here. You don't need my 3 friends to keep the room going. You just want to have more people hear you speak, which is fine, but don't like lie and suggest that the room's cut off if we don't have enough people. So
Yeah.
yes, do subscribe to Spencer's thing and check out the little box down there. And a link to pilot season will be in the box. But go ahead and
Yeah.
check
And
out
subscribe there too.
subscribe, pilot season. That's your friend down there. We're just 2 people talking. We're just an excuse
Yeah.
for you to check those boxes. So
Yeah, you know, the comments, if it isn't obvious where they are, they're below us on the
they are
screen.
down there. Yes, I
In the comment section.
in the comments. I mean, it's but at least we know where it is. There was a program that I was piloting a few months ago for another company I'm not going to name, and they didn't tell us where things like the subscribe button were. So I was like, possibly here, maybe here, decent chance it's down there. Wherever it is, just. And finally, my sister was watching me do this from another room. So she finally texted me and I had my phone there and she's like, it's over here. I'm like, okay, so right over here. And she's like, nope, you pointed the opposite way. I'm like, right over here. So
It's like what I do at the end of this every time. I'm like, and that's somewhere on this screen is so and so, because I don't remember which way that Zoom does it.
no, I know. So it's like, I was like pointing this way. She's like, nope, that way. I'm like, okay, over there. Hit the subscribe button over there. So, I mean, you know, at least YouTube has made it pretty clear to us by now that it's the stuff down there. They're on mobile, in which case I have absolutely no idea. Just find the big red
changes.
Button. The big
it changes.
red one.
The big comfy couch. No.
Oh God, that's bringing back memories.
Oh, that show is it's interesting. And then I also thought of Wienerville, which is a weird show on Nickelodeon. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move into the last question, the big question, right?
Okay.
Which is the reason why I've done this improv summit. Because before pandemic, but even like during pandemic, with improv being even more accessible than it was before online, people always come up to me and they're like, Spencer, you do a lot of improv. Where should I take improv? And they all sound like that too. Where should I take improv? Just kidding. That's not true. Or is it? You'll never know. I'm not going to say who it was. But I can never answer that question because I feel like there's a lot involved in like guiding someone on their improv journey. So that's why I bring in all the experts. But anyway, if someone was to come up to you and ask you like, "Hey, you do a lot of improv. Where should I take improv?" What's like one piece of advice or like one fun tidbit you'd give to them to help start them on their improv journey?
That's a good question. And I think, like you, I often am like, well, there are so many variables. But I think the most important thing you can do is research, and see what makes you feel comfortable. Because really, when it comes down to it, especially in the beginning, no matter how many times we tell you, you don't have to be self conscious, everyone is self conscious. And
Hmm.
the most important thing is that you find a place where you feel like you can be comfortable and where what you're going to experience there in terms of the training is not going to make you feel intimidated. So that's why I probably wouldn't say that someone who's like never taken an improv class should jump straight into Groundlings, because it's
Hmm.
definitely got a bit of an intimidation factor. On the flip side, I think Second City and UCB both present a much more open, and especially UCB, which has really taken it down to, they've really systematized the beginning of improv into that 101
Hmm.
class. Like I got to give them credit there. On the flip side, if you're like looking for something more casual, there's a lot of local improv and like not big three, used to be big four, RIPIO.
Hmm.
But like there's a lot of non in LA, especially and in other places, a lot of local improv. And it's worth checking out a little bit of what local improv looks like because it's often cheaper. And the people there trained at these places. They're
Hmm.
not like people who were like, I read an improv book. I'm going to go teach an improv class. Like, they're people who have the background from these
I
places.
watched an improv show. I can teach improv.
Anyone can do it. They have more experience and they come from one of these or more than one of these usually backgrounds. So you might find a more local scene that is more intimate, has more
Hmm.
performance opportunities, doesn't come with a big name, but has the same level of training. So it's really about doing your research in your own community and seeing what's out there and know that, like I will tell you, I really think Second City has some of my favorite improv memories come from Second City. And thinking from a beginner perspective, that's a great place. If you're more advanced and you want to push yourself a little bit and you've gotten past that like self-conscious phase, I think Groundlings can teach you a lot. It's also very, very competitive. And here in LA, I will say, I don't know what they're doing with online. I really should research it. But Harvey Lembeck has a fascinating perspective on comedy. And I will tell you the other thing is that when you walk into their room, which you're not doing right now, I mean, the walls are lined with photos. My dad, coming from Groundlings, was given an opportunity when he was working on a show in the late 70s, maybe early 80s. Harvey Lembeck was someone he knew personally. And so he went there and was like observing class to try to find actors. And there was this young guy that he was like, that man is one of a kind. There will never be another guy like him, and I want to work with him. And my dad did work with him. A few months later, after my dad worked with him, Harvey walked this guy into Gary Marshall's office and said, you should talk to this man. And I don't know if you can tell where I'm going with this, but that is Robin Williams. So
Mm.
my dad likes to take partial credit for the discovery of Robin Williams, but regardless, Lembeck definitely did discover Robin Williams, and he himself said that that was a place where he always felt very safe. And I would agree. You are in a very safe community. Lots of legends have walked through those doors. Bryan Cranston studied there, Kim Cattrall. I think Penny Marshall studied there back in the day. Like, it's something where back in that era, that's where people went when they wanted to be funny. And what you realize pretty quickly there is that it's not a competitive environment. It's an environment where people just want to be funny and help each other. So I can't say enough good things about it from that regard. It's more advanced, definitely. So yeah, my answer is pretty much your answer, which is it just depends, but comfort should be your priority when you're looking for an improv class that you're going to enjoy.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, thanks so much for joining me, Victoria, on this episode of the Improv Summit. I said that was the last question I had for you, but as always on this show, I'm a big liar.
Oh yeah, you
So
lie a lot.
yeah, I lie like it's like that was a lie too. I lie a lot because I don't lie that much, but I do. So that's a lie. It's a lie. I never lie. That's a lie
But I
too.
guess Ann
See,
did. You see, when you said you lied, I said, yeah, you
yeah,
are a liar. So I guess Ann
I
did.
know. I
Give us
know, and I was yes-anding my lies, or was I? You'll never know whether I was lying or
yes, and
not.
I would love to hear this
Mm,
last question, Spencer.
yeah, so the last question I have, and I always lie about that too, because then I have to like, do the other questions that relate to the question. But the question I have for you is, we've been talking a lot about improv. You want to do some improv?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. All right, let's do some improv. So I love to use this website, which is also dropped in the comments. You should know where they are by now. If not, let me know, and I will happily tell you. There we go. I got it. It's canigeta.com. And so there's locations, relationships, and words. So I'm going to ask you, what would you like, a location, a relationship, or a word?
Given that I'm stuck at home for so long now, let's do location.
Location. Great.
And please
So I'll give
don't.
you two. No, wow, what a surprise! It's house. No, I'll give you two locations, and you tell me which one you want to go.
Okay.
That's a person, not a location. Location, a hamster cage or a call center?
Ooh, let's do call center.
Call center, great. And then do you want to initiate or you want me to initiate?
You can initiate.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, call center. Okay, guess what?
What?
Mike, he's quitting.
Mike's quitting?
Yeah.
Oh
You,
God,
you know
no.
what that means, right?
Yeah.
It's just the two of us.
Right. Yeah. It's just the two of us. This is gonna be great. Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot of extra work.
Yeah. Did Mike say why he was quitting
Nope.
or when?
Nope. Well, he hasn't come in today, so I'm guessing he's just not coming back.
So it's just the two of us now, like forever.
Yeah, it's busy season. I mean, I don't know if they have a budget to bring in like another mic, so it's probably just going to be us two for a while, maybe even longer. But the workload is going to get real intense for a while.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about like working alternate shifts? Like maybe, you cover the one shift and I cover the other shift, or you haven't thought of that, have you?
I didn't get that far. I didn't get that far.
Oh, okay. Because now I'm beginning to think maybe I could work like a graveyard shift. I could go like 3 a.m. to like 9 a.m. I could even go like 11 p.m. to like 9 a.m. And then like you could take the day shift if that works for you.
Yeah, I could do 9 a.m. to like 9 p.m. and then there's just an hour for like a couple hour like break of like lunch for everyone.
Yeah. I think this is a
Yeah.
great. But the problem is, now that Mike's gone, how are we going to tell someone about this plan? I mean, Mike kind of had all the supervisors. Do we have a supervisor beyond Mike? We must.
I think it's just us now. I think it's literally just us. I don't think there's any bosses anymore. So like, do we need to really work?
No, no. You know what?
This
I
is,
have an idea. I'm
yeah.
gonna quit right now.
No way.
Yep,
That
I
means
know.
I'm the only one here.
I know. So you're like fully in charge of the whole call center. So like you don't even have to use it as like a call center. Like you can use it as like your home practically.
I could live here. I already live here. I mean, I don't actually already live here, but it's like I live here because I'm always here.
Oh,
Yeah, but I could actually live here.
yeah, no, actually this would make a really nice home.
Yeah,
Like
it's pretty fancy.
maybe I quit a minute too soon. Are you sure you really like working
It's not that. I think it's just like it's kind of nice to like be the only one around, you know?
here? Yeah, no, I get that now.
The skyline's nice. The New York skyline, Manhattan skyline. It's
It's
nice.
really good. And I
And I don't
mean,
have to pay the rent or anything. Like this is just me just living here.
yeah, I'm really happy for you. I'm glad I made the decision to quit and let you have this gorgeous Manhattan view and all this space all to yourself. And I mean, the rent on this
Yeah,
would probably be like, 5 times what I'm paying for living with roommates.
yeah.
And wow, I'm so happy for you.
Me too. Me too. I'm happy for me too.
Good for you.
It's seen. Thanks ever so much for coming to the Improv Summit. I'm Spencer. That's Victoria somewhere on the screen as we talked about. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.